Thanks, Mike. How's everybody doing? Before we start, I just want to thank everybody for joining the webinar today, and I hope your families and your teams are doing well and staying safe. Also, thanks, Mike and Jason and the team at ADI for setting up this meeting today, and we appreciate your support. Before we start, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and Comelit, and just so you guys have some background. I've been in the security industry for about 13 years now, and I started off on the installation side. And then I was actually with ADI for a few years before coming to Comelit in 2013. So I have a little bit of knowledge in all the fields, and primarily most of my knowledge is in Intercom now, and it's very specialized. So the Comelit group, to give you a little bit of background about the company, is Comelit is an Italian-based manufacturer located in northern Italy. They've been in business since 1956, making it 64 years of making and innovating the intercom world. Today, the company has many other avenues, such as CCTV, access control, home automation, fire alarms. But here in the United States, we primarily focus on intercom systems, which makes us very specialized in what we do. In the United States, our main office is in California, is in LA, and that's where a majority of the stock is kept, and our tech support is, inside sales. That's where everything goes. I'm located on the East Coast in New York, and we have about 5 other guys here in New York as well that help me, and we all work together, and we help the whole Northeast out if you guys ever need something. So today's presentation is basically on door entry systems. It's a little bit different from what we normally talk about on our we do sales trainings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We do technical trainings, but today's training with ADI, I wanted to make it a little bit different so I can show you guys where Intercom has been and where it's going, and the advantages for you guys right now that you can take it, you can use to your advantage and put in your toolbox, and you can see all the different features of not just what Comelit's doing, but what everyone's doing and what the people are really asking for. So I want to start with one slide about a little bit of history behind the Intercom. So Intercom really started in the 50s, and in the 50s, it was the decade of transitioning what a telephone system was. They took a telephone system and they made it simpler, where you can have direct communication between 2 people really quickly and then hang up, and that communication was over. The initial thing was never to open the door or to have a multi-tenant building. It was just for quick communication, like a telephone system spread out across the building. Then it started to it blew up in Europe and blew up everywhere else except the United States. And then it slowly started being incorporating into the United States when multi-tenant buildings started happening, and it was even in people's homes, in houses, in regular houses where people would have intercom systems. For the past 20 years, this is probably what you've seen when you're talking about intercom. When you think intercom 20 years now, this is what you normally see. You have telephone entry, you have which is a system that hangs on the wall that's connected to a telephone line that will just dial telephone numbers. Think of it like a big speed dial box. And then you have the audio-only hardwired systems, which use cable in the building as a hardwired system, and it just provides audio communication so you could talk to the person, two-way, listen, talk, and open the door. And then you have the upgraded version of that, where companies started introducing audio-video systems. And that's where, over the 20 years, that's what people were comfortable with in multi-tenant buildings, one of these 3 options, because there was no real other need for it. So hardwired solutions, what were they bringing to the table? It was basic audio communication. It was wired, so it was reliable. It was inexpensive inside stations. What was in the apartment was generally inexpensive. And it had door release, so you can buzz the door open and talk to people. So a standard hardwired system, all that means is that it's not requiring no internet. There was no telephone numbers to be dialed. It was something where you have door stations outside, you press the button and it calls the inside stations. And the inside stations especially if it was video, it would have a power supply. If it wasn't video, it would just have a daisy-chained bus-based system that was a 4-wire system to control the door, control the talk path, and the listening path. So it was just a system that relied on a wired backbone, and the control panels for this were basically done by the electricians. The electricians were doing these installations as they were running the electrical for the building. So fast forward to as systems started developing, we had 4-wire systems, and we had traditional hardwired systems from great companies like iPhone and Alpha and Comelit. We're all doing multi-conductor systems where it's binary or handshake. It works in a specific structure when it comes to the wiring of the building. And the older buildings were adapted to this because that's the kind of cable they were set up for. So when we talk about the different types of companies that were doing this, it was basically everybody. Everybody was doing this. And it was all serving the main functions people needed, which is to talk to the person at the front door, listen to them, and buzz them in. And sometimes audio only was just good enough. So what was in the buildings all this time? You had either some coax cable and you had a multi-conductor cable. And today, most people don't need the coax cable. The multi-conductor cable is good enough. So when we have meetings with people, especially buildings that have existing cables and whatnot, they say, well, I have a lot of cables, I don't know if they're good or not. Well, over the years, intercoms have become simpler and simpler, and they don't need to use all that cable that you see on that slide. They don't need, in that picture, they don't need to use all that cable. They just need 2 conductors, maybe 3 or 4. So, and the coax cable has gone out the door, where intercom systems don't even need coax anymore. So buildings that have it, it's just left in the wall and it's not used anymore. We've then had video systems that developed from audio-only systems. People wanted to have audio video systems, and they didn't want to rely on the coax. So we had companies started integrating their same 2-wire, 4-wire systems to have the ability of having video. So it had more advanced technology where you can see the person now. It allowed for bigger systems. So systems weren't capped at 50 apartments or 100 apartments. You can do a 500 apartment system with a 4-wire, 2-wire system. And it allowed the ability from doing, added way more security and value to buildings. So when Comelit was started off in 1956, we started off doing a multi-conductor system, which was known as the Comelit traditional system. It was a multi-conductor system. And surprisingly enough, these systems still exist and are functioning today. So we get calls and pictures all the time where people are like, what's this? And it's a Comelit traditional system that's a multi-conductor system. Today, the system that we sell today as our analog-based system that works on existing cable is called the Comelit Simple Bus 2 system. It's our 2-wire system. And when I say it's 2-wire, it is only 2 conductor. That is all that's needed for the system. So when we're approaching buildings that have a large multi-conductor cable that runs through the building, and they say, well, my apartment works, or this apartment doesn't work, or maybe, I don't know, it's spotty throughout the building, I don't know. It may be our cabling. The answer is, okay, but you have a large multi-conductor cable there, and all I need out of that multi-conductor cable is 2 conductors to make this entire system work. And they're like, but what if the chances are of the whole cable being bad is probably slim to none. As long as the installers can vet the cable and say, look, the cable's not corroded, the cable's still good, it's still very conductive, it still works, you can just use 2 conductors out of that entire cable, and we can do a full video intercom system. So on this 2 wires, on this 2 conductors, we do power, we do video, we do audio, door release, and data. Everything over the 2 conductors. And that's the Comelit proprietary technology that we do. So people ask us all the time, well, how many apartments can I do? Is it 4 or 5? The answer is 120,000 apartments. Now, nobody ever does 120,000 apartments on a 2-wire system. Personally, the largest 2-wire system I've seen is roughly around 1,000 units. And but it gives you the idea of how advanced it is now where you may not be able to walk into a building and change the cabling and put an IP-based system in there, because changing the cabling will cost almost 3 times as much as the intercom system would cost in material. So it makes sense to sometimes to use their existing cables in buildings. So what can the 2-wire system do today? Today we have a 2-wire system, and what can it physically do? You can have concierge phones. You can have elevator control. You can have CCTV cameras, integration, analog only. And like we spoke about, 120,000 users. You could have multiple door stations that can be wired into one system. So imagine the front door, the back door, the basement door. You can have all these different panels. And you can have apps on your smartphone, which I'll get into, smart home device integration, and great looking apartment stations, audio only or video. Now, just think about that. That's how far the intercom system has come from the 1950s to now, and it's just going further and further. So when people ask us, well, what does a 2-wire system look like? Like, why is it? You're saying it's advanced. Like, why is it? How is it advanced? The 2-wire system adapts to basically every type of wiring structure you have, whether it's going to be daisy chained, or it's going to be home run, or everything is going to be in star configuration. It doesn't really matter. The 2-wire system is a bus-based system. So as long as you wire up the two conductors in whichever way you plan on wiring it, home run or daisy chained, you can get the system to work. It's binary based. So there are distance limitations. The distance limitations are pretty big. So most people don't go over it. And if you need to go over it, there are ways around it. But this is a typical diagram that you see on the screen here of what a 2-wire system is. And it's not that the wiring diagram was simplified. That's as simple as it is. It's a door station that has a power supply. The door station feeds 2 conductors to a brain called the 4888 CU, which is we call it the mixer. It's the brain of the system. Then from the mixer, it's just 2 conductors straight up from the basement of the building to the top of the building. And you can mix and match audio only and video stations all on one system if you wanted to. It gives people the utmost flexibility with the Simple Bus 2 system. And what's great about it, like we keep speaking about, is it retrofits onto existing cables. So where has this system gone? So 6 months ago, a year ago, if you asked me, well, what can we do on the 2-wire system? That was it. You have video intercom or audio only intercom. Today, there are so many new advancements and features that we've brought over from our IP system, and we've given it to the 2-wire system now. So people who do opt to go with a 2-wire system don't feel left out that they don't have they lost features on comparing to go with an IP-based system. So some of them are the app. Our IP system, everybody gets the IP system to have the app. Now you can have the app on the 2-wire system. How it works is that we have specific apartment stations that you see in that picture there that have a little Wi-Fi chip built inside of it. The Wi-Fi chip pairs to the home Wi-Fi. So imagine, for example, you have a 50 apartment system. This Wi-Fi monitor, the tenant is responsible to pairing it to their Wi-Fi like they would any other smart device or their cell phone. They pair it to their home Wi-Fi. Once it's paired to the Wi-Fi, it speaks to the outside network, and it walks you through the setup of setting up your smartphone app. And in each apartment, you get 15 smartphone apps. 15. So a mom, a dad, and 13 children all in one apartment can all have the app. And now people can answer the call anywhere in the world. So you're not going to miss that Amazon delivery. You're not going to miss that UPS delivery. And you still have a 2-wire system. It's just that your monitor is basically a hybrid. It has a little bit of IP technology in a 2-wire shell. We took it a little step further because the app was cool as it is, but then we also built facial recognition into it. So the facial recognition is how it works is the smartphone app is the controller for it. So the smartphone app, once you set it up, let's say Mike comes to visit me. When Mike comes to visit me, it saves a snapshot of his face in my phone. And it says to me, do you want to save Mike's face? And I could say, yes, I want to save Mike. Mike is my friend. And I can set permissions up so anytime Mike comes to visit me, it will automatically unlock the door for him. I could even just set it up so it just notifies me when he's at the front door. And it will pop up on my smartphone and say Mike's at the front door, and it'll automatically unlock, or it'll just say Mike's at the front door. Now, the whole point of doing this, it's a user experience. It's not access control. It's just something the users are control of, and if a user wants to use it, they can use it. We took it a step further, and we integrated it into Alexa and Google Home. And the whole purpose behind this is, with the facial recognition set up, it will tell you, if I have Mike saved, it will say Mike is at the front door through Google Home or the Amazon device. And then after it says that, I can say, Google Home, activate the door, and the door will open. And this can be done from our small kids all the way up to a 2,000 unit multi-tenant system. It doesn't matter. Imagine on a multi-tenant building how many people have a smartphone device in their apartment. And when somebody buzzes them from the couch, they don't even have to get up or even look at their smartphone to actually just unlock their door in a multi-tenant system. So the advancements that have happened from the beginning to now, it's really, really cool, and there's a lot of features. And there are also other things coming out with the two-wire system, and there's constantly going to be more advancements. There's new door stations being built. There's new monitors being built, new styles. You know, Comelit heavily invests in the style and design of stuff. But today's training, for example, I'm not really focusing on the product line. I'm just focusing on the features and to show you guys where the types of systems and where they're going. So what are the drawbacks, to be realistic, with the two-wire system? You have one speech path, one communication path. So what that means is that if you have a building that has 2 door stations and a concierge phone, only one of those things can work at a given time. If you have a concierge phone that has, let's say, 500 apartments, the concierge can only call one person at a time. And if somebody tries to call while the concierge is on the phone, it's going to give them a busy signal. Why? Because it's a two-wire system. The 2 wires are being utilized. You have to wait for those 2 wires to be free. So on larger buildings, yes, it becomes an issue where, you know, the line may be busy and the tenant has to try back again. In buildings where you have 3, 4 entrance panels and maybe one is being used at the time, the other one will say, please wait. That's the limitations. Those are some of the limitations with the hardwired system. Also, with a hardwired system, you have to have a physical monitor or a audio-only station, something in the apartment. The cost and labor is more because you have to have technicians vet the cabling, install the cabling, mount the monitor, maybe mount a plate on the wall to cover up the old existing intercom, because old existing intercoms are usually much larger than the new intercoms these days. And troubleshooting time. For the installers on the line, you guys know how long it takes going to any analog system trying to troubleshoot something. You can't just open up a laptop and say, oh, the problem is in apartment 3B. It doesn't work that way. You have to physically go to these apartments with voltmeters and figure out where the short is, where the problems are. So that is the downside to to analog-based systems. Does it have a lot of features? Absolutely. And with those features come the drawbacks of why it saved you money in running your cable. So that's where the two-wire systems and our analog systems are going. What I want to speak about now is basically what the future is, and it's IP-based systems. So what's an IP-based intercom system? It looks the same as our two-wire systems. If you approached a building and with a Comelit system, you would not know if it's an IP-based or two-wire system. There's no physical way to know on the outside. The internals are all IP-based. Everything has an IP address. Everything is network-based. Everything relies on a network, just like why people choose to use network IP cameras versus analog cameras today. It's easier, it's more flexibility. You can access things remotely, which we'll get into. But going forward, most new construction jobs are all IP-based because nobody wants to waste their time troubleshooting or laying out the wiring for a two-wire system. Every IP is easier. The equipment may cost more money. It's a slight uptick in price for the equipment, but in labor, you save time dramatically, especially when it comes time to setting everything up. So what can the VIP system do? There's no limit. There's no limit like the two-wire system where it's 120,000 apartments, as crazy as that is. The IP systems have no limits. You can have 1 million door stations, you can have 1 million apartments all on one system and it's fine. Remote configuration, you never have to go back and send a truck to a job site or send somebody to a job site to make a change. You wouldn't believe how many times people call me and they're like, hey, I got a call from a building and the building said XYZ. And I'm like, okay, give me 2 minutes. Let's look at it. And the problem's fixed. And nobody had to go to the building to fix something. Multi-site. You can have property managers, developers that have multiple Comelit sites or Intercom sites that are IP-based, and they can manage them in one web platform, one GUI. That's never been able to be done before. So they can manage people moving in and out of the buildings. They can send messages to tenants, letting tenants know your water is going to be out. If you see this guy walking around the building, call 911. You can send picture messages to the tenants. You can send you can send messages to alerts to the tenants. So the multi-site factor of it is what makes developers and engineers and architects and these people that are designing these new construction buildings. This is what triggers their mind immediately to, yeah, this is what we want to use. Integration, you can do elevator control. It could be done on our two-wire system, but it's done way more smoothly on the IP-based system where you can control elevators. And the elevator control, for those who may not be familiar with it about what it does, is imagine you let your friend, imagine I lived in a building and Mike is coming to visit me. I buzzed Mike into the front door and Mike now approaches the elevator. When he gets into the elevator, I have elevator access control where me as the apartment owner, I have a key fob. So I swipe my key fob and I come up to my apartment. How would Mike get up to my apartment? He doesn't have a key fob. He doesn't live in the building. From the intercom system, I can press a button and unlock my floor for a duration of time where Mike can press the third floor and come up to my floor where I live. So that's what elevator controls are. Before elevator controls, people would have to wait until they think their friend is in the elevator and then press the up button on their floor so their friend comes up in the elevator or go down and get them. So elevator control is a very popular feature. You have apps, as we spoke about, which I'll get into. You have the video stations, and you have third-party companies that Comelit integrates, which I'll show you, that provide a simple solution for tenants. So today, in today's world, the goal is making it as easy for tenants as possible. You don't want tenants walking around with 10 different apps when they live in one building. So that's what the integration is about. Smartphone app. Everybody enjoys a free downloadable app, and they get 15 apps per apartment. So it's way more apps than most people tell me they need. Normally, people need 5 apps at most, but we give you 15. And the apartment stations, you have the option of doing an apartment station or not. Some companies say, you know what, we're an app-only company. Some companies say, you know, we don't have an app, we just do apartment stations. With IP-based systems, you can choose, do you want an apartment station? Do you want the app too? Maybe you just want to do a smartphone system with no apartment stations. And for those people who don't have smartphones, and believe me, there are a lot of people who don't have smartphones, the system makes telephone calls. So it can dial a telephone number, you can pick up the call, talk to the person, press *9 and the door opens, just like a telephone entry. So it brings all the things that people are used to and love from having something on the wall as an apartment station, or for the techie people having a smartphone device that gets the calls on, and to maybe the elderly person who doesn't have a smartphone but has a landline. It can do all those things you want in one umbrella. And then one of the last features is have buildings with concierge phones, with concierge services. Tenants can call down to concierges can call up to tenants. And those are some of the key bullet points. Now, the IP-based system has about 10 more pages of features, to be honest with you, that we're not going to go over today, but it's all bells and whistles that are unique to Comelit, of stuff we do, like call log servers, where we record all the calls on the systems and whatnot. And we have a lot of accessories. And the reason we have all these accessories is because every time we have a job or a request from a customer, the Italian engineers actually try, if it's a good enough idea and it seems something feasible, they make it. And once they make it, it then becomes a part in our catalog of something to sell. So a lot of these innovations have happened since I've been with Comelit, when the VIP system was not so robust. It was door stations and some apartment stations, but it didn't have all the bells and whistles. Fast forward to today, and the stuff I'm going to show you soon is really spectacular. So when people ask us all the time, well, how hard is it to install an IP-based system? Usually, this is the setup for an IP-based system. You have door stations, you have apartment stations, you have apps, you have concierge phones, and everything has to somehow be connected to some type of server that is proprietary to the Intercom company most of the time. And the server, think of it like a video distributor, but it's IP-based. So you would run all your cameras or your apartment stations and your monitors and connect them to this distributor, which is PoE powered and whatnot, and then that connects to the router and to speak to the outside network. So when people ask us, well, what makes Comelit a little bit unique and what makes life easier, is that we don't have that same topology. Everything is expandable. Every device gets connected to a PoE switch. And when we say PoE switch, it can be our PoE switch, it can be your own PoE switch. It can be a PoE switch right off the shelf of ADI, and you can plug our units into it and they will work. Our PoE switches are a little bit more unique because they don't require 110 volts. So I'm going to get into our PoE switches in a few and you'll see the diagram, but I just wanted to show you a layout of what a system would look like, where the rules, the same rules as what Intercom companies are developing, IP rules, don't really apply with IP-based systems. You can take a door station, plug it into a network, and then somewhere else in the building, take a monitor, plug it into the same network, and as long as they're PoE powered, it's going to work. That's it. There's no configuring that needs to be done. It's done with software and whatnot, but there's no brain for the system. So that is one of the common mistakes that people think with IP-based systems, is that sometimes you always have to have a common brain or big server in the building that manages the system. So with our particular system, there is no server, there is no brain. Every device is like a miniature computer that operates on its own. So every device, if I rip something off the wall and I cut the wire, it doesn't affect anybody else. Now I'm out of an intercom station, but everything resides on its own. So door stations, what we put outside the buildings. What we put outside the buildings are fairly simple to install these days when they're IP-based. It's a Cat5. It's a Cat5 or Cat6. You run the Cat5 or Cat6 directly to the door station. It gets screwed down across the terminal block with like you see on the screen here, with the color code, blue, white, the brown pair, the blue pair, the orange pair, the green pair, right across the camera. And right on that camera module, you have the option of either powering up a door strike, or your dry contact is there. If you have your own power supply for your door strike or maglock or whatever you're using, it's right there. If you don't want to use the relay that's on the panel, and if you feel that it's not secure, we sell IP-based relays that can be placed somewhere else in the building. So you don't have to use the relay. But each panel that we sell roughly comes with about 3 relays right on the door station. And as you see in this diagram, it's just one Cat5 into a 1440. And a 1440 is our PoE switch, which I'm going to show you a whole layout of our PoE switches in a few. But it just goes to show people when they're asking us, well, how hard is it to wire this into IP intercom station? You know, it's a big door station that goes outside. Like, is it complicated? No, it's a Cat5. Most of our door stations are PoE powered. Our apartment stations are also PoE powered. They're all RJ45. They each have a plug right on the back of it. So you can certify the cables to make sure that your cables are good and you're not going to have problems during the installations. And when it comes time to installing it, you just plug it right into the monitor, and that's it, and snap it onto the wall. It's very simple. These apartment stations come with a slew of features behind them. You can power strobes up, have external chimes. You can have, what do you call it? For ADA notification, when somebody calls somebody who's maybe hard of hearing, you can have that go off. There are so many different features that these apartment stations have built onto right behind the station. So once you plug that Cat5 in, all those terminals and configurations there are all, you can manipulate them in the software and tell them what they need to do. We have buildings that install doorbells outside of every apartment door. So a regular doorbell, like what you would have on a regular house, like a doorbell, you press it and it goes ding dong inside the house. People put those outside of apartment doors. So when your guest gets to your apartment door, they don't have to knock on your door. They can press the doorbell button, and it's wired directly with a 2-conductor to your monitor, and your monitor will go ding dong, letting you know somebody's at your apartment door now. So those are all features and terminals that we have on these stations that you can use. So here's a wiring diagram that explains how simplified the system is, especially when you're talking IP-based. So in this diagram here, I'm going to turn on a laser pointer so you see, we have, these are the 2 door stations. So in this, they're mimicking having 2 entrance panels. Imagine the front door and back door. So here, this is the front door, this is the back door. They each have a Cat5 that come out of here that land into a PoE switch. The 1440 is our PoE switch. Like I said before, you can use your own, any switches you want. But these that you see right here are standard RJ45 Cat5 connections. Our PoE switches, which we'll talk about in the next few slides, are a little unique. But from them, you see out here, we have the out ports that are just running to Cat5 standard RJ45 right to an apartment station. And that's it. That's as simple as an IP system is. If you needed this to be online and you needed to have access to this, you just have to patch it into a network. And you can have an IP-based system off network. We have many new construction buildings that are completely IP-based. We're talking 500 apartments that are not connected to any outside network. It's all internal locally on that building's network. And some people need it like that, especially banks, schools. This is the best time to think about things like that, because our biggest business for smaller systems, IP-based systems, are security for schools, banks, offices, you know, those kind of places that need single button panels where that call an intercom station inside. PoE switches. These are standard PoE switches that you know and you're very familiar with. Our PoE switches do something a little differently. With standard PoE switches, you have to basically provide 110 volts wherever they are. So if you have a PoE switch in a network closet, you have to plug it into an outlet. You have to plug it in. With our PoE switches, the Cat5 actually passes power from one switch to the next, to the next, to the next. So in this diagram here, which I said we were going to talk about to explain our PoE switches, down here we have entrance panels. This is an entrance panel down here that sits outside the building. This is a Cat5 that's running to the first switch. This is the power supply for this first PoE switch. It has 4 outputs, and imagine this is one floor, apartment 1, 2, 3, 4. This Cat5 that you see going up here is just a standard Cat5. This is on the second floor. This Cat5 passes power and data to this next PoE switch and fully powers it, and allowing it to power another 4 apartments. The same thing, the next Cat5 goes to the next PoE switch, allows it to power another 4 apartments. So for dealers that are installing in new intercom systems, new IP intercom systems in buildings where they are recabling it, especially buildings that have old traditional intercom systems, our PoE switches make life very easy, because you can't often expect 110 volts to be in maybe a trash room or a telecom closet or a hallway staircase, but our PoE switches power themselves, and all you have to do is run one Cat5 from one to the next, to the next, to the next. So it's a pretty cool infrastructure. And like we said before, if you want to use your own, you feel free to use your own PoE switches. So now I want to just touch base on the programming to show you how simple it is to program an IP-based system. So I have had dealers that have bought their first laptop they have ever owned in their entire life, to program an IP-based system. That's how simple it is. Electricians, people who are normally never needing to own a laptop to program things, are calling me saying, I got a laptop, I'm on the job site, what do I need to do? And the first thing you have to do is we have a free software called VIP Manager. VIP Manager is our all-in-one software for managing on-site or managing remotely, wherever you are in the world, an intercom system. And when I say manage, I mean you can change everything from a language to on an apartment station. Let's say a language is in Spanish, you can change it to English in a press of a button. To updating a directory, to maybe adding cameras to the system. This software is the brain of the system. Think of it like that. So when customers call me and they say, hey, I'm working on a job site XYZ, we get that DNS information. I pop it into the software, and I'm at the job site. I'm there. And all I need is the DNS information, which we provide a free DNS for free for the IP-based systems. It's on Comelit. So to explain a little bit about how our system gets programmed to show you how easy it is I want to focus on this page. This page is important, and I think it'll make sense. So we have different columns here. This is what VIP Manager looks like. This column here, it just is a device name type. You can change this. It says internal unit video. You can change it to be whatever you want, but by default, that's what it comes with. It lets you know that this is something that's in the apartment. The external unit is letting you know this is something that's outside. Over here in this column, it tells you what model it is. So if you had different types of internal units, like let's say you had an Icona, which is one of our stations, and then a Maxi, which is another type of our station in one building, it deciphers and lets you know what type of station you're looking at, what specific model you're looking at. Then we have, I'm going to skip this column for a second, and we have the IP address, MAC address, and firmware. Firmware version just lets you know at a glance that everything is playing on the same firmware. MAC addresses are the most important thing. The MAC addresses are how we know what's in what apartment. So when installers are installing an IP-based system, all we tell them to do is keep a track of the last 4 digits of the MAC address and know where they're going. So we put stickers on all the units that when they're being manufactured, they're on the outside of the box, inside the box, on the monitor, where all over, and it's the MAC address. You can keep a track of the MAC addresses. We even have a program that allows you to speed program everything with a barcode reader, because all these MAC address, these intercom systems have barcodes on the outside. You can speed load a system by just scanning them in with a barcode reader before you even get to a job site. So imagine doing a 200-unit building and pre-programming everything without even taking it out of the box and plugging it in before it even gets to the job site. So when your technicians go to a job site, they have a box of equipment. Everything is labeled on the outside of the box, apartment 1A, apartment 2B, apartment 3C. All they have to do is make sure that unit goes into the right apartment. When the system is online, you drop your pre-programmed file onto the system, and you're done. So dealers love that. They love the fact that they can do the grunt work in the office, and it saves time from being out on the field trying to figure it out. So the MAC addresses, like I said, are the most important. IP addresses, for us, really don't mean much. If you're coming from the world of CCTV and cameras and access control, IP addresses mean something. For us, as long as it's on the same network, it can be on auto IP where it populates its own IP address. It could be DHCP, it could be static, whatever it needs to be. But we don't care what the IP address is. We don't track things based on the IP addresses. There's something called the VIP address, and that's why I left this column for last. VIP address is basically how we make calls to apartments. So if you look at this VIP address column here, you'll notice it says 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, 2E, 2F, 2G. Those are apartment numbers. That's how the system knows who to call. This VIP address can be set to anything you want it to be. It's your choice. If it's 101, set it to 101. When I'm outside of a door station and I program that door station to call 2B, it calls all the devices in the system that have a VIP address of 2B. So imagine, for example, this, from where it says 2A down here, to where it says 2H down here. If I changed all of these to 2A and I went outside and called, they'll all ring at the same time. That's how the system knows what device to ring. It's not IP addresses or MAC addresses. The MAC addresses is so where I know where or the dealer would know, the installer would know, hey, this unit, so you can look at this column here and say, okay, 9EE4 is in apartment 3A, and you can double check yourself to make sure that it is in the right apartment. But the VIP addresses are how we program everything. So it is done in the most simplified way where we took out the headache of having to know IP addresses. We took out the headache of having to keep track of MAC addresses and punching them in manually. And all you have to do is create your own VIP addresses, and they can communicate. So most commonly, dealers make the VIP addresses the apartment numbers. And in each apartment, you can have up to 15 devices in each apartment. Like I said, remember when we spoke about having 15 smartphone devices? The same thing goes for units inside. So this is apartment 2S. Apartment 2S can have up to 15, well, technically 16, including the master monitor. They can have 16 apartment stations in one apartment. Now, nobody ever does that for apartments, but where does this application make sense? Schools, offices, where there are going to be more than one station. You can do that, and they'll all ring at the same time. You could even set up ring groups where the first one rings, after a few seconds, the next one rings, and after a few seconds, the next one rings. And that's what we do a lot at schools and stuff like that in offices, where it rings the secretary's desk first, and then it rings somebody else afterwards, and then it'll ring 2 more people after that. But that's how the system works. So it's very, very, very simple to program. And when teaching somebody, realistically, 30 minutes to an hour on the phone teaching somebody through tech support, they're pretty much good enough to manage a system and program the rest on their own, because it's not complicated. And what's great about it, you could even group program things. So if there's a mass change that needs to be made, where you need to program all the buttons on the monitor to do something special, you can highlight everything, throw them in a group, and program that. And that's huge. So you don't have to go to one apartment at a time. The software also lets you know when things are down. So imagine everything is monitored. If somebody in an apartment removed an apartment station, you would get notified. If somebody took off a door station, you would get notified. We sell ourselves area of refuge panels, which have to be monitored. So if an area of refuge panel goes down, or if it breaks, or somebody destroys it or vandalizes it and takes it off the wall, we have to be notified that something happened to that, because it's a life safety type of thing. All this equipment falls under that as well, where it can be monitored through the software. And the software sends notifications out letting you know, hey, something happened with this apartment. 2-wire systems and analog systems don't do this. And that's what causes troubleshooting to take so long. And our IP-based system can save time doing that. So now I want us to talk about IP systems with apps. So outside of the East Coast, apartment stations are not prevalent. Everything outside the East Coast is usually some type of telephone dialer or dialing-based system or audio only, but primarily most of the time it's a telephone dialer. Now, telephone dialers are great and they're affordable options. Some buildings need that options, but for the buildings that want that upgrade and they want to be able to make themselves different from the rest and add value to their buildings, people are now opting to go with the app and telephone-based systems, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to show you 2 systems that you're familiar with, so you understand. There are no limitations with this. You're installing a door station or multiple door stations outside a building. There's no need to get access to apartments. The installation is very simple, and sometimes can be done in a day or 2. It's a low cost to the customer up front. You're not running cable. You're not troubleshooting cable. You don't need technicians at a job site for a week. It's an upgrade for people who have telephone entry-based systems like we spoke about. So those people that have had a Door King system that now say, you know what, this was cool, but some tenants are asking me for the app because they want to be able to see the call and get the call on their phone. You can run with that. This is a typical wiring diagram to show you how an IP-based system gets wired up. So if you notice, this panel here just has an 18-2 for power into a regular transformer. It has its own relay built onto it, and it has a Cat5 that goes to its router. Our panels ourselves operate the same way, where it's a Cat5 to a gateway. It's one gateway per 200 apartments, and it has a power supply, and it gets connected to a router. Very simple. This is another a physical wiring diagram if you wanted to see it like the mechanics of it. Very, very simple. And installing something like this, yes, requires Cat5 at the front door, but that's the only cable you're going to run. A Cat5 or a Cat6 at the front door, and that's it. And then with the app-based system, this lets me explain it a little bit easier. So the first thing you have to do is you have to choose an entry panel. Choose something that you're going to put outside. You're going to wind up putting a door station outside, whether it's going to be. We have a long line of door stations. We have brass panels, vandal-resistant panels, really, really pretty-looking panels, and then we have economical-looking panels that are very budget-friendly. You pick the panel that you want to use. We made it easier, and we made kits. Like you see that box on the screen there? We made kits that ADI stocks that have everything you need to do an app-based system in the box. All you have to do is follow these steps. You pick that box up. It contains the power supplies, the gateway, the door station, everything you need bundled together in one box. Once you pick that box up, you head over to the job site and you install the gateway and the wiring and whatnot. Once the gateway is installed and everything is mounted, this little box is mounted up and plugged into the router, you add licenses to it. The licenses can be purchased through ADI. You buy the licenses, and there's different options, which we'll talk about. But once you buy the licenses, it's based off of how many apartments you have, not users. So if you have 400 people living in a building, it's not based off of that. It's based off of how many apartments are in the building. So if it's a 50-unit building, you buy 50 licenses. After that, Comelit has dedicated support to help the installer load the tenant information into the system. So we take it upon ourselves and offer this service for free if you choose to use it, where you give us a spreadsheet of the building's information that they gave you, the names, the email addresses, the phone numbers, everything that the building gave you, and we format a special list. It's basically an Excel database file, but it's especially formatted to load into the system. So it makes your life very, very easy to take that list of, let's say, 200 people and populate it into the system within a minute. And we do that for free. All you have to do is set up an appointment and get tech support on the phone. Once that's done, thanks to the cloud activation that we have now, the system will email all the apartments on the system and notify all the tenants that they have a Comelit system. Welcome to Comelit. Welcome to your new app-based system. The phone numbers will be loaded into the system. So as an installer, when you pack up for the end of the day and you're done for that installation, the Intercom system works. It calls telephone numbers. As users download the app because they got an email notification, as they download the app and they're setting it up, their apps will come online and you can see that. So people ask us, well, what's the cloud? The cloud is a Comelit cloud that when you turn a device and you install that gateway on the system, it speaks to a Comelit cloud that talks to all the devices that are sitting at that building. So if a change happens here, it reflects there. And that means that from a web browser, which I'm going to show you next here, I can make a change from this web browser that populates in the directory outside of a building. I can send me, for example, you see I'm in the system here. I can press that button that says send mail, and it will send me an email notification letting me know, hey, well, I got an intercom system to the building. You can press a button and send it to everybody in the system. And you can even set schedules on how often it attempts to register users or remind users to set up. You can put phone numbers in here, like it says down here, where you can put a 10-digit phone number and it will call a cell phone number or landline. And the system knows if I can't reach Robert's app or anybody's app, to call the cell phone number instead. Because let's say you're in a building in a basement and you have terrible data, but you have great cell service, but terrible data. The system knows I can't reach Robert's app to call his cell phone number instead. So that's a cool feature to have. This snippet that I'm showing you here is our website GUI. It's not VIP Manager. This is the website GUI that we give property managers and installers. You have access to this, and there's two different logons. One is for property managers, which is simplified and takes away all the features from them having the ability to mess up a system and change an IP address. And then there's an installer logon. You can access this from your mobile phone. So there were times where I'm on the road and somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I'm trying to add somebody to the directory." I don't have to open up my laptop and open up VIP Manager. I can do it from a web browser. And from a web browser, I type in the DNS information and a website pops up. I click the apartment they're talking about, and you could put in a name here. I can put a name in this column here. I can put my name here, Robert Bhiro, and it will populate in the directory outside. So when Robert moves out of an apartment and Michael moves in the apartment, you just have to change it here. And that's it. We try to make the user interface for the people who are going to manage it as simple as possible. So then the next thing people always ask us is, how does the telephone calls work? If it's IP-based, how does it make telephone calls? So it uses SIP, and Comelit now is a SIP provider. So in the gateway itself, that little small box, that 1456B gateway box, it allows you to make telephone calls. That's what allows you. It's all cloud-based. Everything is cloud-based. So as a SIP provider, for 50 apartments or more, we give you the SIP service for free for the first year, for 50 apartments or more. If you wind up doing the renewal licenses, it's covered for free for life. And I'll explain the difference in the licenses in a few. But the calls do not work with a landline. It's basically VoIP, and it's making calls through a SIP service. If you don't want to use Comelit SIP service and you guys have your own SIP service, you can use your own. The SIP service has nothing to do with the app. The app just needs data, needs internet, strictly internet. The SIP service is only for telephone calls. And if you choose not to have telephone calls, which I've had some buildings say, I don't care about telephone calls, the apps are good enough. That's fine. After, you don't need to sign up for a SIP account at all. Forget about the year from Comelit for free. You don't need to use it at all. Just use the smartphone app. But having the telephone backup is a very smart feature to have. So now I want to show you what the Comelit app looks like. So the Comelit app, it has a few different pages to it when you first get into it. So when you first download the Comelit app, it asks you to set up an account. So you have to create an account. It asks you for your first name, your last name, an email address, and a password. Once you type in those bits of information into the screen here, it starts an enrollment process. Because your email address was in the system from this slide that I showed you here, you see my email address is here? That's my credentials. The email address is my credentials. So when I sign into this smartphone app here now and I use that same email address, it looks at the cloud and it says, oh, Rob is part of that, is already entered for this building in New York. And it merges everything together. So now I want to show you how quick and easy it is to set up the Comelit app, just so you can see it for yourself. Let me show you this. So this is live. This is a recording of how it looks when you're trying to set it up. So when you download the Comelit app and you first register and you sign up as a user, it asks you to allow all the basic things, allow access to the microphone so you can talk to people, allow access to the Wi-Fi. Then here it asks you to, let me back up a second. Here it asks you to pick. Do you want to use door entry, anti-intrusion, or home automation? Because Comelit does other things. People pick door entry. Once you pick door entry, it speeds through the rest of the process. You see that little part that just got skipped? Because there's only one site, normally every user is only going to have one site in a building. If a user has more than one site, it lets them pick. But if a user has one site, it skips, it gets to the next screen, and it says, pick which user you are in this apartment. You belong to 125 Christopher, for example. And that's what the screen was here. Click here for 125 Christopher. It automatically gets to the next screen. You press that button. It registers the phone as being part of that apartment, and that's it. automatically the front door pops up on the screen and you can press it right away without even getting a call, and you could see the outside. So from a tenant's perspective, downloading and registering and setting up the app is as easy as just knowing their email address. As long as they gave the building management the correct email address, once they sign up for the Comelit app, everything will be already there for them. So now the licenses that we spoke about. The licenses, we have 3 different licenses to when you're doing app only or app-based systems. We have telephone call only, which is very, very low cost. It's MSRP, we're talking under $15 per apartment roughly. And it's very low cost to have telephone only. It's a one-time fee. There's no reoccurring cost with that. The yearly renewal and one-time upfront fee, they do the exact same things. But the reason that we offer both is that some buildings are much larger and they don't want to spend the money upfront on the one-time licenses. They like the subscription because as a dealer, you could make RMR on it, and as a building, they can enroll it into the building maintenance plans and the building's HOA fees or any type of fees that the tenants are paying monthly, and they can enroll that subscription fee into the tenant's payment, and it never affects the building. Now, that's what most intercom companies do. They do only option number 2, where it's a subscription-based type of system to keep the app going. We offer option number 3, which is very unique to us, where we offer you a one-time fee to buy the license, and that's it. You never pay Comelit again or never have to renew it for anything ever again. And most people like that option. It's very popular compared to number 2. Number 2, like I said, is for larger systems. And we're getting to the end of it. I just want to follow one more thing. So some other things that we do, we spoke about the elevator control, CCTV integration. You could integrate analog and IP-based cameras into an IP-based system. So on that same tenant smartphone app, you can see the elevator camera. You can see the lobby camera, maybe the laundry room. So before you go down to do laundry, you can see that. So and as a dealer, the existing CCTV system that is there already, analog or IP, you could interface into the Comelit app. So in one app, you can give users the ability to see cameras. And you can even give the super, for example, of the building access to see all the cameras, and then apartments only some cameras to see. So it's pretty manageable. Then we have the call log server, which is unique to us. And it basically is it's a little box that sits on the system that is remotely accessible, and it logs every single thing. So it logs every single call that every apartment got. So in a press of a button, you can see which apartment has got the most visitors this month. And you can watch those clips back with audio and video and see, oh, wow, apartment 5B got 55 visitors a day. Maybe apartment 5B is running a business out of their apartment. Maybe apartment 5B is doing something illegal. The building can then address that by using this call log server that logs every single, it even shows you who opened the door and which app opened the door at what time. So it's not your security system, and it does something the security system doesn't do. It's basically a logging device for the intercom system. And then we have the PC concierge, which is you can have a concierge phone traditionally, like a Comelit concierge phone, but most newer buildings that have a PC at the front desk, there's software you can install on that PC that makes the PC become a concierge phone. And all they need is a Bluetooth headset or some kind of USB handset. Very simple. Now, to talk a little bit about our integration partners, we've integrated with several of these people that you probably know here on the screen here. For example, Kerry. With Kerry Access Control, you can manage Kerry. You can manage Comelit 100% from Kerry software if you have a Kerry Access Control system. Your building management will never have to know Comelit software. It's all managed through the Kerry door software. Now, the PDK is an access controls company, also sold through ADI. PDK, our app is built into their access control app. So tenants that are already using their access control app, just by installing a Comelit system in that building, our app appears in their app. So the tenant will never have to know to download the Comelit app. The same thing we did with Salt, and the same thing we've done with Carson Living, which is a tenant management app, and Stratus, Yardi, Building Link. These are all companies that we're integrating with, and we're finding ways to make the user experience very easy. So we have more on the way and more companies coming up. But I want to show you something. When people ask us, well, what can you do with an IP intercom system? Like, what's the limitations? We can do houses. We can do small houses. I can do 1-family, 2-family houses. But I want to show you a reference site that really explains the magnitude of a system. This is a system that we've completed a few years ago in New York, and it's all IP-based. It's 11,800 apartments, all IP-based on one system. So if somebody lives, for example, in an apartment over here, and they want to communicate to somebody over here, they can do that from their apartment station. This complex also has a 24-hour security guard, their own police department, and they can all call security at the same time if they wanted to. So imagine how complex this system is, but imagine at the same time how simple it was because everything was IP-based. Everything is a Cat5 to the nearest PoE switch. Now, we also have a website that's dedicated to projects. It's called www.comelitprojects.us. You can take a look at the website, and it shows you small systems, medium systems, and large systems, and how we use them. Think of it like a website for case studies. And I just want to thank you guys for spending some time today with me. Stay safe. My email address here is on the screen if you guys need anything.